It's time for the news.
In today's top stories, Prime Minister Sifi Gharaib has discussed with his Vietnamese counterparts strategic and trade partnerships, calling on Vietnamese investors to take advantage of the economic reforms conducted by Algeria. Algeria has reiterated its commitment to sharing its experience in the fight against terrorism and to support a large-scale regional response. Palestine has welcomed the adoption by the UN General Assembly's Third Committee of its annual resolution reaffirming the legitimate right of the Palestinian people to self-determination. Hello and welcome on Radio Algeria International. I'm Jamal Simani. The President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, has received the President of the International Committee of the Mediterranean Games, David Tizano, and his accompanying delegation. On the occasion, President Tebboune has been awarded the highest distinction of the Order of Merit of the Mediterranean Sports Movement by the International Committee of Mediterranean Games. The distinction was awarded to the President of the Republic in recognition of the excellent organization of the international sporting events hosted by Algeria under his leadership and in accordance with his guidelines, as well as for his policy of encouraging athletes and the sporting movement in general from the elite to clubs, schools and universities. Prime Minister Sifi Gharaib has shed light on Algeria's commitment to elevate relations with Vietnam to the level of a strategic partnership in the light of the current exceptional impetus witnessed by the economies of both countries. This came during a speech by Mr. Gharaib while presiding over a meeting with his Vietnamese counterpart, Mr. Pham Minh Chinh, in the presence of delegations from both countries here in Algiers. The Algerian premier called on Vietnamese economic operators to invest in Algeria, given the advantageous economic reforms in the country.
I would like to invite the Vietnamese institutions and businessmen to take advantage of the great economic reforms in Algeria in order to launch projects of partnership and investment that enable them to take advantage of the many advantages that the business climate in Algeria provides in terms of the availability of raw materials, the low cost of living, and the proximity of European and African markets. In this context, I would like to mention about the economic revival of the Algerian Vietnamese economy. Today is an opportunity for businessmen in our countries to discover possible opportunities for cooperation and build productive and profitable companies by actively contributing to the establishment of joint projects for the development of bilateral relations.
He then highlighted the importance of speeding up the implementation of the drafts.
The proceeding of the 13th Algerian-Vietnamese Joint Committee, which took place in Algeria in the past 2 days, confirming the importance of speeding up the work for the implementation of these drafts in order to implement them, especially through a roadmap that includes tangible steps and specific deadlines to implement them, and to assess the progress of this through the cooperation mechanisms at various levels. We are happy with the level of cooperation and continuous communication, which pushes us to raise the bar of our ambitions in order to build a more diversified and productive partnership.
For his part, the Vietnamese premier spoke about the importance of speeding up negotiations on trade agreements, highlighting the major role played by both countries on their continent.
Both parties have agreed to speed up negotiations on a goods trade agreement in order to open more of our respective markets and to promote business promotion activities, diversification and growth, and trade in light products. Both parties have also agreed to promote in a business environment and transparent, open investment strategic cooperation projects, in particular projects in the oil sector, agricultural products and clothing products. We play a major role in the association Association of Southeast Asian Nations and the African Union, and we have agreed to contribute to the strengthening of cooperation between the nations of Asia and Africa, as well as South-South cooperation for the promotion of cooperation in our new sectors, adapt to the interest and needs of the development of each country, notably in agriculture, environment, science, technology, innovation, digital transformation, culture, education, training, popular exchange, and decentralized cooperation. I am happy that we have signed several agreements on cooperation in the fields of education, training, housing, urban planning, debt treatment, justice, etc.
Let's note that the Vietnamese Prime Minister is on an official visit to Algeria as part of strengthening and consolidating the bonds of friendship and cooperation between Algeria and Vietnam. The Minister of State in charge of Foreign Affairs, the National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Mr. Ahmed Attaf, has indicated that Algeria succeeded during the negotiations on the draft resolution of the United Nations Security Council concerning the peace plan for Gaza in introducing an amendment of extreme importance aimed at enabling the Palestinian people to establish their independent and sovereign state. During a press conference he held at the ministry headquarters, Mr. Attaf stressed that Algeria's vote focused on consolidating the ceasefire, protecting Gaza's people, enabling aid and reconstruction, and preventing renewed aggression.
ضرورة الضروريات وأولوية الأولويات.
The necessity of necessities, the priority of priorities, and the inevitability of inevitabilities in the current situation lies in consolidating the ceasefire agreement of genocide, starvation, and abuse, which our people in Gaza can no longer endure beyond what they have already borne for 2 years. The necessity and the priority also lie in enabling humanitarian relief efforts, launching the reconstruction process, as well as stripping the occupying power of any pretext or justification to resume the war on Gaza aimed at displacing the Palestinians and imposing its control over Gaza by force. These are the objective considerations to which Algeria adhered with full responsibility, full commitment, full wisdom, and full discernment in its sovereign decision to vote in favor of this draft resolution in the Security Council.
في مجلس الأمن.
On the same occasion, Mr. Attaf stated that the Security Council did not adopt the Moroccan positions concerning the Western Sahara issue, stressing that the file is not closed and remains under the United Nations.
والمؤكد أن مجلس الأمن لم يعتمد.
What is certain and assured is that the Security Council did not adopt the Moroccan thesis, nor did it recognize Morocco's alleged sovereignty over Western Sahara. Moreover, the resolution adopted by the Security Council preserved in its substance all the constant of resolving the Western Sahara issue without affecting any of its interconnected and integrated components.
والمتكاملة.
The minister said that Security Council Resolution 2797 preserves a just solution for Western Sahara, supports the Polisario Front, and ensures Sahrawi self-determination, while Algeria backs UN mediation and regional stability. Concerning Libya, the state minister affirmed that the trilateral mechanism recently hosted by Algeria worked to find a political solution to the crisis, with Algeria, Niger and Chad coordinating to speak with one voice, engage Libyan parties and explore how neighboring countries can contribute to resolving the crisis. Commenting on President of Niger, Abdurrahman Tijani's congratulatory message to President Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, Mr. Attaf said it reflected a genuine will to strengthen Algeria-Niger relations. He noted past tensions arose when Niger and Burkina Faso sided with Mali after it withdrew from the Algiers Agreement, but Algeria is ready to restore ties with these brotherly countries. Regarding the Trans-Saharan gas pipeline from Nigeria to Europe via Niger and Algeria, Mr. Attaf highlighted that most of the Algerian and Nigerian segments are complete, with only the Niger section remaining, confirming this route as the optimal path for gas transport. On another matter, and concerning the possibility of reviving a political process in Sudan. The minister said that external actors block any political process in Sudan, making revival of the process impossible despite Algeria's efforts.
يعني حقيقة يعني الآن الدور للفواعل الخارجية.
I mean, in truth, the role of external actors has now truly become an obstructing barrier to any political engagement with the crisis in Sudan. And due to our presence on the Security Council, we see how the situation is complex, very complex, and it is impossible for any party that wants to revive a political process specific to Sudan to succeed, because the polarization, conflicts, and differences that exist between the external parties in Sudan prevent that. And despite all goodwill, determination, and resolve we have not been able to bring viewpoints closer nor come out with any initiative.
Concerning Algerian-French relations, Mr. Attaf said that they improved before President Tebboun's decision to grant Boualem Sansal a pardon, emphasizing that relations are bigger than him and should not be influenced by hostile circles in France. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. Now in New York, Algeria has reiterated its commitment to sharing its experience in the fight against terrorism and to supporting a large-scale regional response, emphasizing that it places the fight against this scourge and its financing at the top of its national and regional commitments. During a briefing to the Security Council on strengthening regional cooperation in the fight against terrorism in West Africa and the Sahel, as part of the debate on peace building in West Africa, Algeria's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ammar Ben Jama, stated that violence in the Sahel is now a major structural threat.
The violence we confront today in the Sahel region can no longer be seen as an isolated incident. It has evolved into an ever-expanding and structured threat. Terrorist organizations are extending their geographical reach, enhancing their operational sophistication, establishing connections with international criminal networks, and developing autonomous financial system driven by drug trafficking and kidnapping for ransom. This escalation is largely facilitated by our fragmented collective efforts. Political vacuums and insufficient coordination among stakeholders create conditions for these terrorist groups systematically exploit to expand their influence.
Emphasizing that Algeria places the fight against terrorism and its financing at the forefront of these national and regional commitments, he specified that this position is based on bitter and extremely difficult experience in this area.
My country, Algeria, places the fight against terrorism and its financing at the forefront of its national and regional commitment. This stance is rooted in a bitter and a hard-won national experience in the struggle against terrorism. It is also reinforced by Algeria's pivotal leadership in driving and coordinating the African Union's counter-terrorism agenda. It is embodied in the 1999 Algiers Convention, which continues to guide African continental strategies.
Mr. Benjamin said this commitment reaffirmed by Algeria during its presidency of the Security Council is of paramount importance in the neighborhood, given the borders it shares with several countries in the Sahel which are most affected by terrorism. The World Food Programme WFP has warned of the deepening hunger crisis in Sudan, stressing that an estimated 318 million people will face acute food insecurity in 2026. The UN agency said funding cuts will worsen a deepening hunger crisis around the world. warning that more than 300 million people will face acute food insecurity next year. In its 2026 Global Outlook report, WFP said food insecurity is expected to remain at alarming levels, and the current acute food insecurity in 2026, which equates to crisis level or worse, and is more than double the number in 2019. Around 41 million are estimated to be in the emergency phase or worse, which is the equivalent of an IPC4 or higher classification on a globally accepted hunger monitoring system. Now to the Middle East. The Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has welcomed the adoption by the UN General Assembly's Third Committee, which deals with human rights and humanitarian affairs, of its annual resolution reaffirming the legitimate right of the Palestinian people to self-determination, including the right to independence, return, and to live in their homeland free from the Israeli occupation. More on the topic with Masoud Sharfi.
In a press statement, the Palestinian ministry emphasized that this right is legitimate, not subject to any conditions, restrictions, or compromises, and cannot be negotiated under any circumstances. It noted that this resolution is fully consistent with the advisory opinion issued by the International Court of Justice regarding the illegality of the Israeli occupation and the necessity of ending it immediately and without delay, as it constitutes the greatest obstacle to the Palestinian people's ability to exercise their right to self-determination and establish their independent state on their land. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry affirmed that the importance of this resolution at a time when the occupier continues to carry out forced displacement, land annexation, settlement expansion, and deepening of its illegal control over the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem. It expressed deep appreciation to the countries that voted in favor of the resolution and called on them to translate this support into practical steps that would enable the Palestinian people to exercise their right to self-determination and end the Israeli occupation in accordance with the International Court of Justice's advisory opinion, which affirmed the illegality of the occupation and the need to end it immediately and without delay, as it the only way to achieve security, peace and stability in the Middle East.
Now, a UN report has said that the forced transfer of Palestinians by the Zionist entity and its construction of new settlements in occupied Palestine may constitute war crimes and in certain circumstances, crimes against humanity. The report was presented by the Assistant Secretary General for Human Rights, Elsie Brands-Caris, to the Fourth Committee of the UN General Assembly, which deals with special political and decolonization issues. Saeed Bougazi has the details.
The report stresses the need to address the root cause of these cycles of violence and oppression, the denial of the human rights of Palestinians, including the right to self-determination. To remedy this, the Zionist entity must end its illegal occupation of Palestinian territory, Elsie Brands-Caris said. Ms. Brands-Caris added in this respect that this is the first time that outposts have been located in Area B, which is a worrying development in the expansion of settlements. Denouncing the violence perpetrated by both settlers and the Zionist government against Palestinians, the UN official reiterated her call on the Zionist entity to end its illegal presence in the occupied Palestinian territories as soon as possible, notably by evacuating itself all its settlers and respecting the Palestinian people's right to self-determination. Meanwhile, European Commission spokesperson Anwar El-Anouni has reaffirmed the European Union's opposition to any attempt at demographic or territorial change by the Zionist entity in the Gaza Strip and supports the unification of the Palestinian enclave with the occupied West Bank under Palestinian Authority. He recalled in this respect the words of European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, who said that Gaza is an essential part of the future Palestinian state and there should be no more forced displacement. On Monday, the European Union's High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Kaja Kallas, expressed the EU's rejection of the violence perpetrated by Zionist settlers in the occupied West Bank. In a statement made during her meeting with a delegation of Palestinian media at the EU headquarters in Brussels, Belgium, Mrs. Kallas said there are many discussions going on about these practices and attacks which we consider unacceptable committed by the settlers.
Now, at least 13 people have been killed following an attack by Zionist forces on a Palestinian refugee camp in southern Lebanon. The strike targeted a car near the Khalid bin al-Walid Mosque, and it was later reported that the raid also targeted the mosque itself and a center bearing the same name. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. I'm Jamal Salmani. Stay tuned.